Good morning, David.
Morning, Les. I think we get our timing down better today.
You did. I like our shirts.
Right. So you look good. This
Yeah,
is,
so,
I've worn this shirt for a while. I think I finally beat you in colors today.
yeah, I think you did. I think you did.
I've been trying all week to get a brighter color than you, and I just did it. So I feel good.
Good.
Thank you for that.
Of course, you need one win at least a week, David.
I get one. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about Father's Day is on Sunday, and we are going to talk about, first of all, this is dynamic healing for a reason. We're looking at the interaction between you and your circumstances. And of course, a huge circumstance or huge environmental factor is your family. And the bottom line is family patterns get passed on to you that you pass on to your kids. And when you get critical and judgmental, those criticisms and judgments are really yourself, look at yourself, and then projecting it onto other people. That's basically consciousness 101. So it's easy to be critical of your parents because they put the patterns in there in the first place. They didn't try to, it's just the way it is. So Dr. Arya specializes in family dynamics, and I'm going to learn a few things. I'll just briefly mention, Les and I briefly sort of have opposite family patterns. And just remember, your families are your biggest triggers. And my father was passive, and he was a nice person. He was a physician who worked 100 hours a week. And the way he coped with my raging mother is he just never was home. He worked 100 hours a week. And for many years, I was very critical of him leaving us at home with an abusive mother. But I finally realized at about age 40 that he just flat out did the best he could do. He was abused by my mother also, and he feels horrible about what he didn't do. And so I have a pattern that just is what it is. And I know a lot of people have various patterns, but the bottom line is your family puts the patterns into your brain. Then the rest of your life, you get to react to situations based on those patterns.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, and that's what we're talking about, patterns. And, so my pops, he was a naval officer and was very regimented and, very nice, very kind, but very clear and very controlled. So I had this image growing up that if I was not in control, something was wrong with me,
Right.
sort of the opposite of us. And,
Right.
and he was gone on long missions when I was younger. And so, but when he was, when I was in high school and my older school age, he was home. And but what's interesting is that he always had this control and his emotions that was very calm. And when he laughed, he had this high pitched laugh, which made you laugh. And but it's very, very different. Coming back to patterns. And I remember this working with them in the garage and doing a few projects, which I hated to do, just to let you know, because he was so damn smart with his math calculations and like switching things from inches to metrics, which he could do in his head. And he just was good with electrical things. It was everything. He was good mechanically, and I couldn't beat him at it. And I remember him yelling at me, or I should say, he was schooling me. Measure twice, cut once. And he kept on saying that over and over. I'm like, what does he mean by that? So now when I sometimes do certain projects, I get myself anxious because the pattern is there. But now I know that he was trying to teach me. A lot of our parents, especially our fathers, were trying to teach us in ways that we may not have picked up on, spoken and unspoken. And these patterns become our inner critic voices. So both our parents, but since it's Father's Day, we're talking about this. And I like what you said, David, which I think, I'm not sure if the audience got privy to our conversation off camera, that I like what you said, that, our fathers do the best they can.
Right. That's what we're all doing. We're all doing the best we can do. So we get self-critical. But the first thing I tell the people I've worked with, including myself, is give yourself a break. I just realized as you were talking, something sort of sad. I don't think I recall ever in my entire childhood, ever, even as an adulthood, my father truly laughing, ever. I That's sort of stark realization for me. But yeah, my father, very smart guy. He was raised in the country. Um, he's Jewish. He was the subject of a lot of anti-Semitism in New England, in the valley he lived in. He's pretty isolated, and he did a remarkable job in the big picture of he raised a great family. the family has done well, and it had a lot to do with him just being a nice, concerned person.
Yeah.
And he wasn't always around, but he did the best he could do. But yeah, I went through 10 years of being negative of my father. He didn't do this, this, and this. He left us at home. And it's just important, I think, in the big picture. I know you have some specific ways of looking at things, but the bottom line is you and I both have many, many people we work with that just hold on to anger from the past against their parents, father or mother. We're talking about fathers today, but it doesn't help your life. It doesn't help them enjoy their life. And it's just not a great thing to do, to hold on to something in the past that wasn't perfect or wasn't good enough.
Yeah, absolutely,
Or
David.
even, or even abusive.
Yeah, I think the psychological term there is when we have certain expectations, and at some point when you work with a therapist, and again, so we've talked about the word forgiveness, but we use the word processing anger, letting go of what was not and what we wanted. So these expectations, sometimes boys and girls grow up as become men and women, we wanted people to be a certain way. And at some point in adulthood, we basically shift and say, I'm letting go of that image. Hollywood does a great job about, fathers and mothers being a very specific way. And we want that particular loving kind of person. Now, many of our audience would have had very loving fathers, and would have been there for them. And another group or subsets where they were abusive and condescending and not emotionally available, or addicts. For that matter, is at some point in our life, we learn to shift into forgiveness, not so much to kind of let someone off the hook. That's not what we were saying, just to carry over from yesterday,
Right.
but to actually take ownership of when we get stuck in the past, we drown sometimes in our sorrows and we can victimize ourselves. So the goal is to be victorious, like in the present moment, when you can actually give some self-love to yourself and actually to others that you may not want to, and accept them for who they are. When you shift your paradigm that, I have what I need, and they did their best they could. The paradigm shift, taking a look and see how they went through. For example, my dad was the ninth kid, was the last
Right.
kid.
He was how many?
9 kids in the family.
He was number 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so in that sense, right? So coming back full circle, what we want to do this Father's Day is really just kind of take a look and see is, how are you as a parent to the rest to yourself? One of the most important things I teach my patients is learn to be the healthiest parent to yourself.
Right.
Important thing, how you talk to yourself, how you encourage yourself. And when old messages of inner critics from your parents, and specifically from your dads, surface, and you can actually hear the energy of that inner critic voice from your parents, right, or your dad. And my dad said, don't trust anyone, and because he was a naval officer, intelligence officer, right? So now when I hear that voice, I'm not sure about that person, I ask myself this question. So the second intervention, besides letting go and accepting someone for who they are, releasing expectations. The second intervention that I'm suggesting to the audience and to ourselves is basically when you hear an inner critic thought, that's, for example, a father's energy in there.
Right.
Is this message helpful? And if it isn't, you as an adult get to make that decision.
Well, I agree completely. I mean, there's many, many layers to this conversation when it comes to parents, but I think we'll stick with this, is that, remember, you are responsible for you. That's it. Right. I mean, your parents laid the foundation, and they gave you some material to work with. Then what do you do with it? Right. You have a choice of going forward and constructing life on your terms, not on your parents' terms. And so by making the separation allows you to see the parents as doing the best they could do, and understanding that they tried as hard as they could do, and we're trying as hard as we can do, but my kids aren't perfect. I mean, they're pretty close.
So, David, I've got a question for you and the audience members. And then what's one thing, so this is my question to the audience and to you and to myself, what's one thing that you do differently that your dad did? For example, if your dad was passive or your dad wasn't there, what's one thing you did differently with your kids?
I was, something, I probably did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done, but I tried to, I won't use the word accept them, but I tried to just be there more frequently than, I mean, I worked too hard, But I did come home at 6 o'clock every night, regardless of how much paperwork I had to do, and I would play catch with my kid. I just
Okay.
did that. And so that's one thing that wasn't done for me that I did do for my son.
Yeah, and for me, one thing I do frequently with both my kids, I have Sebastian and Ashley. I frequently we didn't have text messages back then, but also to them, I touch them more. I say I love them more, and I constantly letting them know that I'm thinking of you and I'm loving you. Whether in a text message or when I'm with them, I'm touching them and rubbing their backs and telling them how proud I am of them. I think sometimes we don't hear enough messages like that. So if your fathers have passed away, if your father's still alive, if you can learn to just accept someone for who they are, and again, work with a therapist if you have a lot of trauma, because there's no need to carry this burden with you and release it. It feels so good because when you release trauma and your anger and your frustrations and your disappointments, you actually tap your true you. And when you can be you, you be the best you.
Thank you. Excellent. Appreciate that's a good day. And we will see you Monday. Have a great weekend. This is Dynamic Healing Moments with Dr. Les Aria, who can be found at remedypain.co. And my work is found on the docjourney.com. And we're excited to talk to you. We're excited about the weekend. Enjoy your Father's Day.
Yeah,
Have a good day.
everyone.